Chapter 2 was released on May 5th, 2022, less than a year after the first chapter. During this time, Poppy Playtime became very popular. Everyone was talking about it. It seemed to be the new hit horror game. At the same time, Mob was also making a spin-off game called Project Playtime, which was just a Dead by Daylight clone. Not to mention all the garbage merch. But around this time, Mob Entertainment faced their first controversies. At this moment in time, they were accused of plagiarizing a game that nobody cared about and bullying a 15-year-old kid. Look, I don't know who cares. I'm not interested in that. All I care about is the game. Now, Chapter 1 was considered by most to be a demo. Surely Chapter 2 should have more to offer, right? Well, get this. Chapter 2 is only 15 minutes longer than the first game, and it's $10. Basically highway robbery, but goddamn does it make you feel like it's longer. Anyone who completes this game in more than a half an hour either is a child or is just distracted by all the fancy bells and whistles. I have never played a game that has so much new stuff in it but also has nothing at all. It's just a rushed mess, and I know this because when the first trailer came out, it looked completely different from what we got now. And yes, we will be comparing the two. It's an overall disaster of a chapter, and I'm not the only one that thinks that. A lot of people claim that this chapter is not the best, but their main complaints are that it's not scary enough.
I like the premise, and I think Chapter 1 was good horror. Chapter 2 wasn't scary a little bit.
Honey, that's not even breaking the surface. Let's look at the intro summary. With Poppy now free, the situation begins to change rapidly while you search for any way to escape the factory. What the hell? No, seriously, what the hell is going on? Let's recap. We got a note from a mysterious bitch who was saying that there were people in the factory abandoned for 10 years, and then we are supposed to find a flower, and after we find the flower, we just give up? We shit our pants? Seriously, what is this bullshit? It contradicts everything we went through in the first chapter. But whatever, let's just play the game. We start where we left off, in that room with the doll, and again, we're just plopped into the scene. No cutscene or anything. Originally, we were supposed to find out what happened to the missing people, but after reading the summary, I guess we have to escape? Weirdly, the player has nothing to say, and I'm not sure what direction we're taking the story in. But something is off already. First off, it's way too dark. Yes, the graphics have gotten an upgrade, but if you notice that the video keeps changing in brightness, just understand that every time I enter a new room, I usually have to adjust the brightness so I can see the level. So the player walks out of the room and enters the factory. We see a door to Elliot Ludwig's office, but it's locked. And now we gotta find a key. But remember when I asked whether or not the grab pack was a grapple hook? Well, now we have a new ability. We can now swing across holes, like Indiana Jones or something. Another one to add to the list, I guess. Now, I hate to admit it, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It's pretty easy to use. You grab onto the railing and click the mouse button again to release. Unfortunately, these swinging sections are way too easy. It's not like you're to be swinging around like Tarzan. No, that'd be way too fun, and apparently they weren't going for that. But it works pretty fine. Most of the time. This is a great example of a game that lacks player expression, which I'll get into soon. While you're looking around, you learn that you're not alone.
This way.
I guess that's Poppy? Is she trying to scare us? I'm not sure what angle this is. Anyway, I found the key the size of a shovel and I opened up the office to Elliot Ludwig. Think of Steve Jobs, but instead of making the iPhone, he makes gay shit. How do I know this? Well, I watched a VHS tape that's apparently about him in his office. A little bit of a narcissist, don't you think?
In the 1960s, an unfortunate family death had pushed Ludwig down to his lowest.
Oh great, we got dead kids involved. Alright, we're gonna bring dead kids in it. How much you want to bet the dead kids are actually the toys? Actually, that is the case. Here's a note talking about experimenting on dead rats. Really blew their load with that reveal, didn't they? So we enter this secret room and...
Sorry.
Oh, there she is. We finally get to talk with Poppy. Well, not talk with because you don't say shit, but she says that there is a train that we can escape on. Unfortunately, the plot happens.
Listen, I'm going to need you to trust me.
Damn. Was I supposed to care? What's interesting about this scene is that it was very different from previous versions. In the first builds of the level, you were going around following Poppy, and there was also a lot of jumping areas in the game. But in all versions, you have the same problem. In both versions of the scene, we get the bare minimum of character building. We barely even know Poppy or her motivations. Fuck, we don't even know our motivations at this point. She's not even really helpful. I mean, moving your fat ass out of the way so I can do a shit puzzle is not helpful. Dumbest bitch. So anyway, we jump down this giant hole in the middle of the fucking factory and we go to the game station, but before we enter, we meet Mommy.
A new playmate! It's been so long.
This is Mommy Longlegs, a giant stretchy toy who is the main threat of this chapter. Now, surprisingly, a lot of people hate Mommy Longlegs due to the fact that she makes people horny rather than scared. I mean, she does speak like a porn star.
Mommy heard that Miss Poppy was going to just give you the train code to escape.
Her design was also criticized due to the fact that they wanted her to look like a spider, but there is little to no resemblance of that. Where's this bitch's damn ovipositor? You know what I'm saying? Only freaky men like me know what that is. Now, the normal response in seeing this monster is that she is a bitch, but the meme side of my brain likes to think that she is a repurposed sex toy. That would definitely make Playtime Co. much scarier. Not only will the toys kill you, but you might also get a venereal disease. I mean, that would explain how she makes webs. Poppy definitely got a taste of the gooning. Going back to the sex toy thing, I genuinely think that that would build depth and character to this stupid ass monster. This toy factory must have been around for a while, so clearly mistakes could have been made. I mean, they even have a dedicated room in the chapter with a bunch of rejected toys. It could have had the same backstory as Barbie. I mean, before she was a girl's toy, back in her first concept, she was an adult toy. Just imagine Mommy Longlegs with her husband, Dilkington the Dilk. Fuck, I messed it up. Dilkington the Dildo and her son, Plan B. All I'm saying is no one would make it that big if they weren't gonna have sex with it. Show me that ovipositor, baby. I can smell it from across the room. Of course, the most cliche thing in any horror game is for the villain to play a game with us, and each game we win, we are given a part of the train code.
Obey the rules, or I'll tear you apart and eat your insides while you're still alive.
Mama, why the fuck am I getting a fucking boner?
And here we are, the game station. And yes, the game can barely handle the level of mediocrity. In this area going forward, you will notice the lags in the game. Some areas work better than others, but I think it's because the map is too big. The game station itself went through several designs. They wanted it to be smaller, but I still think it's too big. It's got catwalks, playgrounds, and a giant train. The other reason why the game might be so laggy is because of all the new props. There are so many little shits that you will step on. It's like being in Orion's toy review video, but it's a Viet Cong shrapnel surprise egg. Once you enter the game station, this is where you'll be spending most of your time. There are 3 games that you will be playing. 2 of them are the exact same game, while the other one, I don't even know what the fuck they were thinking. All the while, you'll be traversing this giant underground tunnel system and solving puzzles to get to each game. Jeez, is Playtime Co. ran by Ickit Claw? Who the hell dug all these tunnels? Giant ground sloths? Personally, I picked the latter. This is also where we get a new hand. See, after Mommy takes the red hand away from you, you have to make a new green hand. The green hand has the ability to hold on to electrical currents for 10 seconds. You place the electricity into these boxes that activate doors. It works fine, you just have to hustle your ass around the level to solve the problem. I wouldn't even call these puzzles, it's more like doing manual labor just to pad out the time. I think what's also funny is that this new mechanic is not even used in the game rooms. Hey, not to divert from the subject, but for some reason this chapter reminds me a lot of a BioShock level in Fort Frolic. Even though it might sound like a big stretch, it's very familiar for some reason. In both levels, you have to do a bunch of tasks to escape an area, you get a new item, and both areas are just there to pad out the game. Even in BioShock, that level was bad, but at least it kept you on your toes. I tell ya, this chapter is boring. You never feel like there's a threat or a monster that's just gonna come out and grab you. You just leisurely walk from hallway to hallway so you can get to the next game. Speaking of that, let's talk about the games. Musical Memory is just a terribly designed Simon game. You just push buttons before a giant rabbit eats you. Originally, the monster in this room was a flower? Which makes no sense. Thank God that they actually had the bright idea to change it. I mean, this makes a lot more sense than a fucking flower. This game is so easy that you can play it with one hand. In fact, if you want to speed run the game, you just grab this ladder over here and shimmy your way through this crack. I wouldn't advise this because you need the green hand, or do you? Oh, fuck. Yeah, you know, no, you do need it. God, why is this called musical memory if there's no music?
You missed the point entirely. You might forget the music, but you will never forget the sensation of me shoving this up your ass.
Oh, now I get it. Thank you.
One time is funny, 2 times is fucking annoying, no?
Whack-a-Wuggy is just musical memory, but really quiet. It's just you, in the dark, shoving your hand in glory holes, stopping smaller Huggy-Wuggies from yiffing you. There's not even a number count you have to reach for the game to end. Once you hit enough creatures, the game kind of automatically stops, and then you just move on. Finally, there's statues, which you move when the lights turn off and stop when the lights turn on. You will be followed by a giant snake dog with very large pupils. I think he might be high on fentanyl. There are these rings that you can try to swing across, but when I did it, yeah, it fucking sucks. In this area, though, we do get some interesting dialogue from Mommy.
But you worked here. So if anyone deserves to die alone, it's you.
So she does know us, which is interesting. It still doesn't help us figure out the position the player worked in. It's just vague enough for the developers to still decide what they want to do with this prick. At the end of Statues, the player escapes, but later Mommy finds you. She is pissed, and now we have to try to escape this dungeon area. Don't forget to collect the golden Mommy figure in the vents. Oh, I almost forgot. Yeah, they're golden collectibles in the game. Yeah, just scattered around the map. Pretty pointless in general because there are no achievements, so I don't even know why they're here. It was at this point I realized that Mommy is a bit of an idiot. I blame the programmers. Like, there's this part where you walk on a metal platform and she chases you. And I guess you're supposed to lock yourself in this furnace, but she clearly walks up these stairs, ignoring you, and back down the hall. The first time playing this, I walked right past her, only to be killed in the same room. This segment also made me question how the player holds a flashlight. I guess that's another ability to... Oh, fuck it. Just put it on the list. Who gives a shit? Was it in the first game? I don't even know. Eventually, after turning this lever, another chase begins. And this one is different. Something feels off. It looks cool. Mommy is chasing you around. Things are crumbling before your eyes. It almost feels like something is happening. But nothing is happening really, it's just an illusion. And then it hits me. I realize that these segments are designed to move the player to where they need the story to go. You're basically a sheep being herded around obstacles by a sheepdog. There's no real threat unless you just don't move, in which case the monster eats you and you have to start all over again. It reminds me a lot like most Disney rides. You know the one, where you're sitting on an escalator while you watch animatronics dance around. That's what it feels like. It's a big song and dance. There's no real threat, it's just a cheap gag. The whole scene barely functions itself. A lot of games do have similar sequences, but nothing as single-minded as these moments. I mean, they force you on a path by covering the furnace room with mommy goo, and then the model itself is missing an arm? What the fuck? Isn't she supposed to be a stretchy monster lady? So why is she running on all fours like a dog and not grabbing me from halfway across the room? And don't say because she likes to toy with her prey, cause it's obvious she hates playing these games with you and wants you dead as soon as possible. Not to mention when she does use her stretchy limbs, it makes no sense. Like, wow, she can stretch all the way in front of us only to collapse the ceiling and not grab us. It makes no sense. And then there's this sewer area where she doesn't even try to reach out and grab you. She just stops. I'm not even sure what the logic is. This then finally leads into a giant grinder room where mommy gets her hand stuck in the machine and we just turn it on.
What have you done? You make me part of you! You can't do this to me!
This is then when the prototype grabs her corpse and escapes the room. Okay, so then we kind of walk up these stairs and whoa, wait a fucking moment. Yeah, so there's a new character that appears called the Prototype. It's supposed to be a mysterious figure in the game, yet this is the first time we are formally introduced to it. And I know that already some of you are writing in the comments, did you not see the videotape in Chapter 1? Yeah, I did. Let's talk about how Poppy Playtime fails at telling its story with lore. Lore is a term that's thrown out a lot these days. The idea of lore is to continue the story in detail from the original plot from a game or movie. In a movie like Star Wars, it has its own condensed story and rules in the film that are explained enough so that you don't get confused. But if you're interested in Darth Vader's suit, for example, you can learn more about it by reading new media or watching a video. With video games, there are several options, mostly adding document-like things around the level. They could be a piece of paper or a computer with a data log. These are here to establish the world more and sprinkle in detail. It's not necessary, but it adds a little more. They are not used to supplement the storytelling, because it's in the name of the product. Video game. Moving image game. Mob Entertainment is trying something that many other games do when trying to tell a mysterious story, and that's by leaving it out of view of the player. As tired as this example is, Elden Ring has a very vague story, and it's built this way intentionally. By reading item descriptions, you get a greater context in what you're doing, the importance of each character, and the connections between each other. Elden Ring does not expect you to read every item description, and that's perfectly fine if you're not going to do that. It's about the adventure and piecing it all together. They do it very well with visuals. Now, storytelling this way is not entirely bad. The fact that From Software has done this for most of their games, and everyone praises their stories and sucks their dicks, goes to show that it can work. Yeah, but what about BioShock? Now that's a true man's game. Well, that game does have a similar style of audio cassette tapes like the VHSs in Poppy Playtime, but in BioShock, they make it very clear and obvious to the player what they need to listen to by highlighting the audio tape in gold. I think where it fails for Poppy Playtime is that it never feels like a discovery, and it has almost nothing for you to interpret. The game is so linear that these secrets are more like glorified cutscenes and just bait for YouTubers to gawk at into the camera while they play. They're so desperate for analysts, but have so little to offer. It's almost like a parody of itself on how tedious it is. It's a story being talked at you, not a story being experienced. It's like watching Freddy Got Fingered. There's no connection between the game, the tapes, and the story. Things just happen without rhyme or reason, all for underwhelming reveals, some of which act like you didn't already figure it out. The most annoying part about these VHS tapes is that they only play audio. So not only are you staring into nothing, but you can't even continue the fucking game because you gotta wait for the tape to be done. And please tell me why they get Jacksepticeye to play a character. He can't even speak English!
Marcus, you're losing me. Maybe you just saw a bunch of people walking by.
Look, it wasn't people, alright? I haven't a bloody notion what it was, but it wasn't human.
What do you mean by that?
So here's the spark notes of the Poppy Playtime lore up to this point. Playtime Co. has begun to work on something called the Bigger Bodies Experiment on children who were either kidnapped or raised in a factory. I like to think that these kids were petri dish babies so Playtime Co. can dodge paying child support. But it's more likely that they were kidnapped by this universe's Epstein. Once the children reach a certain age, they are turned into toys. And maybe the cardboard cutout.
Push the button to feed me candy. Nom nom. Feed me more.
I hate being alive. I hate being alive. I hate breathing. I hate being alive. I'm in tremendous pain. I'm in tremendous pain. Help me, help me, help me.
Look, Poppy Playtime really doesn't do much in world building outside of the company, so we have to assume that this is our reality. And well, there's no way for the story to be about the industrial trade of children and not seem like an allegory, which it isn't, because the story itself is shallow as fuck. And Mob has no clue of what they're doing and how this shit works. Is it like the children's souls are put in the toys, like Avatar? Or are their organs slapped into plastic cases, like RoboCop? Or are they just gaslit into being marketable plushies? And don't even get me started on the prototype. He's a character that is only mentioned in the VHS tapes, but is essentially the main antagonist of the story, and heavily implied to be the root cause of all the problems. Why is this in the background and not in the main plot? The main problem with this shambling corpse of a plot is that it's vague enough so it can retcon itself, but also reveals just enough information so that Super Horror Bro Mike can make 11 videos on this piece of shit. The prototype is mentioned one time in Chapter 1, but only in the form of a VHS tape. And since in most games, information like this is optional, I didn't pick it up on my first attempt. And even knowing after the fact that these tapes are important to know the plot, I'm still not picking them up. They could sit in the open all they want. I ain't playing them because I'm not gonna force myself to backtrack to a TV, sit still, and watch a failed attempt at analog horror.
We keep on receiving these annoying ass calls about probably some drunken homeless guys that we'll refer to as assholes. Of course, we don't know too much about them. Just lock your doors, close the house. Don't be stupid. You know the you should do every day. You'll be able to tell if it's an asshole based on how shitty they look. They'll probably look like your third grade bully. If you see someone that looks like you or someone you know, lay off the synthetic weed and get sober for a second.
Okay, let's just get back on track here. So we rescue Poppy, and for some reason she has a different tone of voice.
Did you kill her? Good. I'll board the train. We need to leave.
Already a bad sign, but whatever. Finally, we reached the train, which, from what I can gather, was driven by someone with Down syndrome. Put the Down syndrome-ass code into the train, and we can finally get the hell out of here. Or do we?
I'm sorry. I can't let you leave. I've never met anyone like you. Do you know how long I've been stuck in that case? Well, too long. I had so much time to think and reflect. Time to figure out exactly what I would do when free. We'll set things right. Terrible things have happened. But I know that whatever I need you to do, you're capable.
Before we get to the next destination, the train crashes, just like every helicopter in every video game ever. And that's how Chapter 2 ends. Before I end this chapter review, I want to make a final statement and go over things that I missed in the summary. One thing I only briefly mentioned in this game is how restricted it feels. Chapter 2 has a lot of new mechanics, but only lets you use them when they want you to. You have to play how the programmers laid it out. Besides the invisible walls, certain mechanics just don't work until specific things happen. For example, to get out of the secret room, you have to use the bar to raise yourself out, except you have to wait until Poppy finishes talking to you and tells you to get out. I guess the reason for why this is because this game is for babies, but why is there so much blood? Who is this for? Now, some may think that horror games can't have player expression, and I say bullshit to that. I'll give you an example. Let's talk about Alien Isolation. Now, some may say that that's an unfair comparison, but hold your horses. Let me explain the budgetary differences does not matter between the two. Okay, let's just say I'm stuck in a room with an alien, and I needed to escape the room. Well, here are my options. I could hide in several different places, I could throw a trap, I could make noise, or I could straight up burn its ass. In Poppy Playtime, when Mommy Longlegs ambushes you, there is only one solution to each encounter. Run down the laid out path, or hide in a single specific area. Also, I didn't know where to put this, but there was a new monster. Yeah, a Kissy Missy. She's like a huggy wuggy gender bent who's probably better at giving blowjobs than scaring you. It's so meaningless to the plot that I was gonna forget her altogether, but then I realized she's probably gonna be in Chapter 3.